Hey, welcome everybody. This is Scott Davidson and I'm the Business Development Manager for McNeil. And today we're going to take a look at Rhino, Grasshopper, and working with Direct Link with Twinmotion. We're excited to work with Twinmotion on this. We really think it's going to enhance your process of design and visualization, tying the products much closer together. But before I look at the details of the Direct Link, let's just quickly look at how Rhino and Grasshopper are being used in the AC industry. For those who might not be familiar with it, Rhino's used really for two things, freeform fabrication and parametric design. This is a good example where this is a Rhino and a Grasshopper model done by MBJ. And so as Grasshopper will be as it works, if you change the inputs to this, the number of leaves change, the shape, the angles, the form, the number of seats, all those things change in the model, and you can explore many different designs. Now, the nice part is as you get closer and closer to fabrication, then you can use Rhino 2 to break this shape down into components, beams that you can fabricate from. And so Rhino's used in that case for both. You'll see this theme many times with Rhino models. They have to do with complex form, unusual shape, and then using Rhino to break those down, not only explore that shape, but break those down into shapes that you can fabricate from in an accurate way. This is a little older design, but in this case they're using Rhino to develop shape and form in an accurate way to recreate building in a model that they have plaster cast for and old sketches and things like that. So they use Rhino to get to these complex shapes and forms. Rhino's also in Grasshopper a lot is used to build complex form and shape in terms of, in this case, a building or a high-rise. And then you can use Grasshopper to change the different inputs and look at different designs, not only in a form way, but also, for instance, from a usage, occupancy loads, square footage, revenue, all those can be looked at design time. So as you're making changes, you can make informed decisions about various aspects of the design. Another example of this is KPF, and what they use it for is they'll go through and make these very quick iterations using Grasshopper, and then Grasshopper is coming back with information like what are the views, what's the daylight loads, what's the value per square footage, what's the revenue that can be based on that. All of those things can be looked at design time in order to explore different options. But what we're here today to talk about mostly is Rhino and Twinmotion and how you can work together with them. So I'd like to look at a few aspects in Rhino when you're getting ready to go to Twinmotion that you might want to think about and look at. And so what I have here is a pretty standard building in Rhino. It's a straightforward building with a freeform roof. And the first thing we want to look at is materials. So what's important about this is that there are materials assigned to this in Rhino to this building. And I can just quickly jump in here to the rendered view. And you can see we have different materials and glass and things. What's important to Twinmotion isn't necessarily the properties of these materials. What's important is the name. And so in this case, I've assigned these materials by layer. And so those names will be replaced when they go to Twinmotion with Twinmotion materials. And so you can use Twinmotion's advanced materials to populate this scheme so that you can, when Martin gets to looking at it, get to a much more advanced rendering that you can work on. Now, another thing that we can, it's important to understand is that the environment that we're in Rhino doesn't really matter. Twinmotion is going to have its own environment, so don't worry about sun and the environment and things like that. Let Twinmotion take care of that. Another thing that we can do or should be prepared for, we can use to our advantage, is Twinmotion will replace objects in the Rhino scene if we want it to. So you can put placeholders in the Rhino model, in this case a person, but another place it's used a lot is, let's say, for vegetation, for cars, for different things like that, where you can put a simplified object in Rhino, and then when it transfers over to Twinmotion, Twinmotion will replace those with its objects. And Twinmotion has a lot of ways of optimizing a model for rendering and for walking around it and for VR. And that optimization will take place when you transfer it over. It makes it a lot faster, it makes it a lot easier to walk around it, and makes it a lot easier to have a much more complex model and keep your performance up, mainly because of its gaming engine background, and so that's something that this direct link will do automatically. I think it's important to note a little bit that if you're going to do glass, you want to do a single pane of glass in Rhino, and Twinmotion can take care of that for you, or use that as their glass. And it's not really, the Twinmotion isn't going to be as sensitive to detail as Rhino is in terms of the model, and I think that's someplace where the swapping of objects, the replacing of items, is really going to help. So those are a couple things to look at or think about when you're getting ready to go to Twinmotion. And I'm going to have Martin now take over this, and he can show you the details and the process within Twinmotion to make this rendering final.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Scott, for the introduction. My name is Martin. I've been working on the Twinmotion team for around 7 years now. I will be your host for this Twinmotion presentation today. So the idea is that I will import this file inside Twinmotion and just create a couple of images, just showing you some tips and tricks and how to use Twinmotion from a blank project, so after you imported the file, until a final render. So first off, when you want to synchronize your Rhino file inside Twinmotion, you will need to download the Direct Link plugin. You can find that in the Epic Games launcher. So let me just open the Epic Games launcher. I will come under the Twinmotion tab. And at the end of this window over here, we have the Twinmotion plugin button. When you click on it, it will launch a web page, and at the bottom left of this web page, you will find a link to download either the Windows or macOS version of the add-in. It's the latest version over here. Once you downloaded and install the Direct Link plugin, in Rhino, at the top of the screen in the ribbon over here, you will see a new option, Twinmotion 2020. When you click on it, you have a couple of options. The help will send you to the online help, where you will find some helpful resources when you are getting started inside Twinmotion. In the option, we have some interesting stuff. So actually, the most important thing is the merge option. By default, we merge by materials when you import a project inside Twinmotion. That means that, for example, in this project, if all the worlds are sharing the same material, all my world will be collapsed as one big object. So it's really a matter of performances. Twinmotion can handle millions of polygons, but not millions of separate objects. So usually we tell the user to choose the collapse by material, the merge by material option, which will have some better performances, especially for people that don't have like a high-end gaming type of graphic card. You can also, of course, choose the no merge option, and you will keep the hierarchy of your file, or you can also choose a merge by layer. So today I will be using the merge by material option. Here, the substitution, so what it do, basically, if you have set up a glass material inside Rhino, when you check this, it will be automatically replaced by a Twinmotion glass material. Same thing for the concrete or different kind of material. So we have we have created basically a conversion table that takes some material that we have in Rhino and we replace them automatically by Twinmotion materials. And then we have some other options. For example, in the optimization tab, we can exclude small objects if you don't need like screws or stuff like that inside your perspective. So let's just click on OK. And now, if you want to visualize this project inside Twinmotion, it's just one click on the Synchronize button. It launches automatically Twinmotion if it's not already launched. You can choose an existing project if you already imported this file and you're just refreshing the Rhino project. But here I will start a new project. It's importing the data, and as you can see, it's quite fast. It's a small project, but it's just a couple of seconds to load the data. First thing I want to do is maybe change the time of day. So I will come to the upper right of the screen, click on my eye, and the first option I have here is the daytime. So here I can start to play with the time of day of my project. So we have some nice sun coming towards the facade. Now, as you can see here, in Rhino, I just had the building itself with this small terrain, but I also created a small context around the project. So Twinmotion supports the direct link plugin like we have showed with Rhino, but you can also import manually file directly inside Twinmotion. So I'll come under the import doc over here. I will click on the import button. I will click on open and look for my project. And here I will import my context. Don't need to check the option right now. I'll just click on OK. And here I just imported my file. As you can see here, while I was using the Direct Link plugin, some of the material has been replaced by Twinmotion materials. But here, through the FBX, I just added a basic color on my geometry, and I retrieve inside Twinmotion this basic color. So maybe it's time to add some materials to the project. Twinmotion comes with a native library of thousands of objects and material. You can find this library on the left over here. We'll click on the arrow to open the library. And we'll start with the materials library. Open the material library. We start with the ground, nature. If I want now to add a grass material to this green color, it's just a basic drag and drop from the library to my viewport. As simple as that. I want to have the same color on my two terrain, on the imported terrain and on the terrain that came through the Direct Link plugin. So I'm just selecting this grass material and I will add it to this mesh. So I don't even see the separation between the two geometry. I can add a couple of more material to my project. Let's start by the roof. I will come to the metal folder and I will just drag the brushed aluminum like that. Here on the wall, we have a concrete that has automatically been replaced with these nice tiles that have some parallax, but it's not the look I want for my project. Let me actually add some metals to the mullions. I will come back now and enter the concrete folder, and I will just drag a concrete materials to my facade, like that. Same thing on the inside, I can come here, drag and drop that. We can add some polished concrete on the roof, on the floor as well. And when you add materials to your project, it's automatically selected in the dock that we have at the bottom of the screen. The dock is basically where you will find all the options, the tools, and the settings. And here my polished concrete is still selected, so I have a few options regarding these specific materials. So for example, I can click on the color tab here and I can change the color of my material, making it darker or lighter. I can also change the reflection, making it completely rough or completely reflective. I can even change the scale of it. So now maybe it's time to add some vegetation. Let me now come back in my library and enter the vegetation and landscape folder, trees. If I want to add a tree to my project, it's fairly simple. I will just select the tree I want, and I will just simply drag it from the library to my viewport. As simple as when I dragged some materials to my project. So it's just a simple drag and drop from the library to the viewport. Now if I want to add some tree a bit quicker, in Twinmotion we have what we call the multi-drop tool. So basically what I will do is click on one item. I won't be using the drag and drop. I just one click with the left click under the mouse. And now the object, the tree, is under my mouse. And now at each time I will click in the viewport, Twinmotion will add this object to my project. Since it's a tree, it will take a random rotation, a random scale, and a slight color variation, so hopefully you won't see any repetition like we have here. So using the multi-drop tool, as you can see, you can quickly visualize, quickly add some tree to your project. You can also do that with a multi-selection. So for example, I will select one tree in my library, and holding the Control key, I will select two other trees. All those three now are under my mouse, and Twinmotion will randomly select one of them and add it to the project at each time I will click inside my project. So again, I will just click a couple of times, and as you can see, it's completely randomized. So it's a quick way to add some vegetation. Still, my project is quite big, especially the terrain surrounding it. So if I want to add some vegetation quicker, in Twinmotion we have two different tools. Let's enter the context doc. Here is the two tools. We have the vegetation paint tool and the vegetation scatter tool. Let's start with the vegetation paint tool. Here we've just opened this doc. We have a drop box here where you need to drop some trees. So I will start by dropping, for example, the London plane and some oak like this one over here. Now I will select my brush, and I can now start to paint my tree directly on my terrain, as simple as that. I can use a bigger brush, so by default it's 10 meters, but you can have a really bigger brush to paint tree a bit quicker. If you think that we have a bit more density, you can come back to the density. So I can select the tree, for example, let's select those two trees, and here I will check and change the density on the fly. To add tree even quicker, the final tool that we have inside Twinmotion is this scatter tool. Same process here, I will drop some tree in my drop box, the same tree, so the London plane and the Turkey hawk. I will select those two trees, I will select my scatter tool, and I will now just one click on my terrain to add the tree all around the terrain, all around the place. So as you can see here, it's a really quicker way to add some vegetation. It have added the tree all around the terrain, but there is some chance, since the terrain is going beneath my project, there is a chance that we have some tree in the middle of the house. So what I will do now is either I can remove the tree using the scatter remove tool that will remove slowly some of the tree randomly, but I can also use my vegetation eraser tool to just remove the tree surrounding my house. So now we have all the tree around our project. Maybe it's some time to add some grass. Right now we just add this flat texture on the surrounding, on the floor. So to do that, I will use the same kind of vegetation paint tool. Here, but now I'll use some grass. I will come back inside my library and enter the grass and flowers folders. We'll start with some wild grass. We'll use maybe a smaller brush like this one over here. And here, let's start by painting this grass surrounding the house. So I'm just doing that pretty quickly. I'm using a smaller brush near the house, so I'm making sure that I won't be covering like the road or the project itself. And I will then use a bigger brush when I will have some large area to cover a bit quicker. So as you can see, we have some green triangle that is glowing. It's actually where the grass will be casted. Because when the camera is moving away, let me first start by finishing this grass. Now I can use a bigger brush just to fill this whole field in front of the project. Yeah, now that's fine. So as you may have noticed over here, the grass is fading away when the camera is moving away. It's an optimization that we do inside the viewport. So basically we remove the grass when it's far away to gain some performances. But it's really only in the viewport. When you will be exporting some images, this grass will be present on all your images and all your videos. And what I wanted to say by saying that is that the green triangle will help you to better identify where the grass is brushed, where the grass is present inside your scene. So as you can see here, even if the grass disappeared, you can still know that the grass has been scattered, has been painted all around the terrain. So now that we have some our grass over here, I can add more density. So I can select my grass and add more density just by raising the density slider over here. I can also add more things to my layers. So it's a layer system, so you define an area and you can add more objects to this area. So for example, I will scroll to the bottom of my grass and flowers folders. I will drag and drop this field scabious flower. We select it, just changing the density to something like 1%. I think it will be enough for this project. Actually, maybe not, maybe 5%. No, it's too much, 2. Let's stick with 2. Can also add some white flowers like we have here. Maybe this one will be around 5%. So it's adding a lot of geometry, so sometimes it might take some time to have the full effect, so you need to leave the software a few seconds to load all the grass, all the data. But here we have our new flowers. So in fact, it starts to look great. What I would like to do, maybe add more flowers like the ling heather. So same thing here, just drag my flower over here and this one switching to 1%. Also, at each time you go under 0% and come back to 1%, it randomizes the placement of the vegetation. So if you don't like how the vegetation is placed, you can switch to 0% and come back to 1 or 2, and the placement of the vegetation, either grass, bush, or trees, will be resetted. So start to like that. Maybe there is 2 more of this one, so maybe I will just remove this ling heather. Maybe it's time to create a camera. So we come to the media dock, enter the image. I will click on the big plus button to create a new image. I like to work with a more cinematic camera, so what I will do is enter the option of this specific image, come to the camera settings, and here I will just switch to a 50mm focal to have something a bit more cinematic. Let's come somewhere where we have some nice lighting under the grass, like that. So here I will just come back to my image and update the point of view, like here. In this specific image, I can also change a bit the time of day, so we have a better sunset, or actually it's in the morning, but we have a better lighting on the project. Actually, right now it's a bit empty in the street, so let's come in the street before we export this image, and let's check a few other options and tools that we have inside Twinmotion. As you can see here, using the scatter tool, we still have some tree that has been planted in the middle of the road. So here I'm just going to using my eraser, remove some of those three, like here. Now that's fine, and on the other side as well. Okay, that's fine. So first thing is adding some vehicles. I will come back again in my library, enter the vehicles folder, cars. If I want to add one car to my project, it's just a basic drag and drop from my library to my viewport. Here, using the gizmo, I can change the orientation of my vehicle, so making sure it's placed correctly in the direction of my road. Now, in my modeling tool, I place some box at each position where I want a car to be placed. I place some basic box, basic dummy, because I want to show you a tools that we have inside Twinmotion. So I exported all my box as an FBX file. And now I will import my dummy cars.fbx. In the option, I will just check the keep hierarchy option. If I leave the collapse by material option, what basically will happen is that all my box, since they have all the same material, all my box will be collapsed as one object, and I don't want that. I've placed correctly my box in my project, and I want to retrieve the correct pivot point of all those boxes. So I will switch to the keep hierarchy option, and I will click on OK to import my box. As you can see here, all my box has been imported in my project, and the pivot point is correctly placed at the center of this box. So now what I will do is open the scene graph, which is this panel on the right. It's basically a layer system similar to Photoshop. Here we have the layer, the add-in layer, which is the project we imported from Rhino. Here we have the layer, which is the context, the .fbx we imported. Then we have all the vegetation assets we have added to the project. And finally, at the end, we have even the different paint and scatter layer that we have created. Here, what I want to have a look at is the new dummy cars.fbx file that I just imported. As you can see here, I have all my boxes. What I would like to do with all those boxes is replace them all at once by some Twinmotion vehicles. So I will select the folder, I will right-click on it and click on the Replace Object button. It has opened a new doc. Here, in this new doc, I will just drop some vehicles, completely randomly, just selecting some of Twinmotion cars. And what I will do now is just click on Start Replace. It will automatically replace all my box by some Twinmotion vehicles, which will be correctly placed in the good orientation following the road. Now, for example, if I don't want this car to be this color, I can still select the vehicles, and it have a selection dock, and here I can change the color to whatever I want. So this is the first way to add some vehicles. Now, if I want to have some vehicles that are actually driving on the road, I will come to my context dock, and I will now enter the path tool. I will start with the vehicle path. I will select my pen here, and I will just basically create a spline in the middle of my road. Something like that. I will leave a few seconds to load all the vehicles and all the characters inside the vehicles. And that's it. Now we have this path that is animated, we have the wheel spinning, we have some characters in the cars that are also animated. Here in the selection dock, I can change a few options, like changing the number of lanes, and here I just want to check the 2-lane option that will make sure vehicles are driving in both directions. And you can even change the density or the speed of the density or the speed of the vehicles. Sorry. Next thing I want to show you is the character. So coming back to the library, now I will enter the character folder. Same as the vehicles, we can add some characters one by one, like that. All those characters are animated and they have different kind of animation. So when you select one character, the first option will be the clothes. So you can change the color of the clothes. You can change the pose, so maybe he's in idle state, maybe he's sitting, maybe he's lying, maybe he's even dancing. And even after you choose a pose, there is a list of animation for each pose. So we have this dance, or this one, or this one. So you can add characters one by one like that, but we also have some groups. So for example, if I select this group of 3 people, at each time I will click, Twinmotion will randomize the 3 characters that are added to the project. So it's a quicker way to add some life to your project. Finally, if you want to have some characters that are actually walking inside your project, I will use the same kind of tool that I use for the vehicles. So I will come to the path, and now I will use the character path. Select my pen, same thing here, I just create a spline. And as soon as I release my tool, character will start walking along the path. So here I'm just going to remove the people out of the way so they are not collapsing each other. So as you can see here, we have some characters walking. We can change the width of the path. We can change the density of people on it. So it's really a quick way to add some life all around your project. So let's stick with something a bit smaller, with less density. We are in a calm neighborhood. So now we just added some characters. Let's come back to our media. So let's come back to the media image. I will click on image number 1 to come back to the media I was in. Let me just reset the density of the white flower. I don't want to have that much white flower. Yeah, something like that will be a bit better. Just going to refresh my camera point of view over here. So I kind of like this, this point of view. So now what I would like to do is just directly export this image. So I'll come to the export doc. Here in the image, I will just select my image. If I've created multiple images, they will be listed here. And I will click on Start Export. I'll send that to my desktop. By default, Twinmotion export on a 2K resolution, but you can manually go up to 8K. And if I close that, here I have my image that has been generated in just a couple of seconds. So you can see it's fairly simple to create an image. It's as simple as that to create an animation. So let's choose, for example, a new point of view, maybe an aerial view like we like here. Instead, now of going to the image doc, I will come to the video doc. I will click on the big plus button to create a new video. And this is the starting keyframe, the starting point of view. So now what I need to do is move in the project and click on this small plus over here. So I just move inside my project, click on the small plus, and Twinmotion automatically creates the animation between the 2 different keyframes. So here I am in my movie number 1, in my part number 1. Now if I want to create a second camera with another point of view, we just need to move inside my project. I can come something like here. And now I will use this plus over here to create a new video part. Same thing here, I just move inside my viewport. I will click on this small plus to create a second keyframe in this specific part. And now I can start to visualize my whole video, which contains right now 2 different parts. We have this aerial view like here, and then now it will switch to the second point of view over here. So it's fairly simple to create an animation inside Twinmotion. Of course, you can create any number of keyframes. So if I come back to this one, we can have this kind of drone view that is going all around the project. I can pre-visualize the camera path just by dragging this pink line over here. I can also change the part length. So for example, I can select here, by default it's 10 seconds, but I can make this part length a bit more long, like 20 seconds. So as you can see, it's fairly simple to create an animation. Finally, just a couple of things I wanted to do in this specific shot is just to add a bit more life inside my interior. So I will keep the media mode. I will come toward my project. First thing is a bit how to enhance the reflection inside Twinmotion. So I will use what we call the reflection probe. So basically what it does, it captures an image on the surrounding of your project, like we have here on the forest on the back, and it will apply this image onto my glazing. So it's give a nice reflection like here. I will also a bit lower the opacity of the glass so you can see a bit better inside the project. And now we'll just come inside and start to add some interior furniture to my project. It's really quick just to show you the kind of object that we have inside Twinmotion. So I'll come to the object folder. Here it's divided by type. So we have the home, which is the interior type of furniture. Then we have in the city everything from benches to bollard to street light. So today I will check the interior furniture. We can start with the table. So here we can add a table inside my living room over here. In the decoration, we can have some framing on the wall over here. Let's add, for example, a shelf on this side over here. Here I can switch to the scale tool if I want my shelf, for example, to fit my wall, to be a bit bigger. Let's add some plants on the corner over here. So we are just adding, maybe not this one. This one is a bit too small. Like this one, maybe this one. Also here, what I would like to do is have some kind of cabinets. So I know that we have that inside the bedroom storage. I kind of like the basic one over here, but obviously I don't want all the bedroom props that is on top. So what I will do is through my scene graph, I will just select all the items that are on top of my shelf, just remove them. Then I will just place correctly my shelf, duplicate it to have a bigger shelf, something like that. Placing that against my wall. And to make sure that it fits my interior, what I will do is, using the material picker tool, I will select this wood material, and I will apply this wood material on my two shelves to make sure that is belonging to the same kind of living room. I can also do that with my shelf over here. So it's kind of good. We can also, if I want, for example, add some like adding a sofa on the corner over here. We can have some kind of carpet on the floor over here. I'm doing that pretty quickly, just to give you an idea of the possibility inside Twinmotion. Really, at the end also, if you have some question regarding the usage, the furniture, don't hesitate to ask all the questions that you can have just at the end after we end this presentation. So just a final touch will be maybe adding like a small table like here. So here I'm just adding some props, just so in my image we can see some stuff going inside the project. It's not like completely empty. So here I just took a couple of minutes to populate my living room. I won't bother you with giving life to all the other room, but you get the idea. Twinmotion is filled with plenty of objects to start giving life to your project. So don't hesitate to have a look at all the different objects that we have inside the library. And if you don't find the object that you need, Twinmotion also have what we call the user library. So basically how it works, so you can import any kind of object. Twinmotion supports plenty of different file formats like FBX, SKP, OBJ, C4D, and some other. So you can import any kind of object through the regular import process. And then this object, you can save it under your user library, and you can then use any object from the user library and just adding to the project. So for example, here, I've been creating this chair in 3ds Max, and I just imported this chair from my user from 3ds Max as an FBX file, and I just saved this chair in my user library so I can use it for every future project. So you can really create your own hierarchy of object directly inside Twinmotion, and you can also have this user library share around your network, so you can work with your colleague on the same library. So I think we are reaching the end of this presentation. Thanks everyone for watching. We didn't cover all the features presented inside Twinmotion. It was really to give you a quick tour about what is Twinmotion, the capabilities, and how you can have some fast results working inside Twinmotion. So here in just like 30 minutes, I've created this scene. So yeah, if you enjoy, tell us. Now it's time for a quick Q&A session. So we'll start by looking at the old comment, and we'll pick the question in the order they arrive on the chat. So yeah, feel free to ask all the questions that you have. Thanks everyone. If you don't have any question you want to leave, it was a pleasure. Also, the recording of this webinar will be sent automatically by email. It will also be available directly on our YouTube channel in the upcoming days if you want to watch it back. And I think that's it. Now it's time for the Q&A. Daryl, do we have some questions?
Well, that was really awesome. Thank you so much, Scott and Martin, for that. So I have Martin on the audio with me, as well as Scott. Are you guys there? Excellent. So that's a pretty good introduction to what Twinmotion and the connection to Rhino is all about. Thank you, everybody, for joining this. I do want to mention that we also have an online learning section you can go to for more information about Unreal as well as Twinmotion. And we're going to be spending about the next 10 minutes or so, or maybe 15 minutes to the top of the hour, going through a few of the questions that people had in the chat. And we'll try to also monitor the chat as we're having this conversation to answer as many questions as possible. So with that said, first question for Scott. Scott, can you tell us a little bit more about, I think a few people missed the introduction, possibly they joined a little bit late, but about that Rhino and Twinmotion connection and what's coming across?
Material on your chair, for example. When you import your project, you're using the plugin inside Twinmotion. Since by default we use a merge by material option, your walls will be collapsed with your chair, so it will be only one object. So if you change the material on your wall, it will also change on your chair. So it's just something to keep in mind, that it's always better to set up your material directly in Rhino
So don't just create the 3D inside Rhino and send everything to Twinmotion and hope that everything will be okay. It will be better to set up material inside Rhino, even if it's just basic materials with basic color. It doesn't matter as long as you divide correctly. It's really depending on what you want to do inside Twinmotion. If you want a different color on each of your wall, separate different material in Rhino directly. It's usually is the best workflow.
Excellent. So another question we're talking about Twinmotion, and a question came in about reflection probes, and they were asking, are there any options, for working with reflection probes? And maybe Martin could answer that one. Making them stronger, using screen space reflections, things kind of like that.
Yeah, actually, we just released yesterday a quick tips regarding how to create a mirror with the reflection probe. So you can check that on our YouTube channel. Reflection probe, for people who don't know, basically it captures a 360 image of your project and it applies it to the reflection of your object. So it's not fully dynamic. On the Twinmotion roadmap, if you look on our website, it's mentioned that we are currently working on RTX. So this is something that we want to push forward in the future to improve the reflection, so the support of RTX. Right now, we are stick with the reflection probe. It's not perfect, but yeah, I'm not sure what I can add to that.
Sure. No, I think that the point to the video is a great example of how you can take what the reflection probes do and use to work around and gain the best results. So question just came in the chat. I saw it earlier in the chat also, and it just popped back up to the top of it. So maybe we can talk about the automotive animations. And someone's asking, is it possible to have just one car roll into a garage and have the wheels turn and things like that, as opposed to a string of cars?
Yeah, right now you can have a car on a custom path, but wheels won't be spinning. It's something that we are currently working on for the future. Right now, if you want your car to have the wheel spinning, you are stuck with the vehicle, the car path that we have inside Twinmotion.
Okay. There was a couple of other questions about the Rhino and the Rhino table and the conversion that happens. So how is that handled?
So we took some of the native Rhino materials and we have created basically a conversion table, and we said that this glass in Rhino will be replaced by this glass inside Twinmotion. Same thing for this set of concrete will be replaced by this concrete inside Twinmotion. So this conversion table is locked. People can't edit it. But even after you synchronize your project, you can just replace the materials that you have inside Twinmotion by any one coming from the native library inside Twinmotion.
Excellent. So another question was about bringing in trees or other furniture, so other import options.
Sure. Actually, we did a webinar about importing your own asset inside Twinmotion. It could be a tree, bushes, it could be also a chair. And in this webinar, we also cover how you can save those assets inside your own user library inside Twinmotion, so you can use it for future projects. So if you want to have a look at this webinar, it's on the Twinmotion YouTube channel. So you can just head there and look for it's one of our latest webinar.
Excellent. And out of Rhino, we would normally probably say save FBX to start an asset workflow to create the asset in Twinmotion or to help with that.
Yeah, exactly. Usually FBX is the best format for Twinmotion. So you can just, here we've shown like the direct link plugin, but you can also just export just one chair and import this chair as a FBX and save it to your user library, and it will react as any chair that you have inside Twinmotion.
Nice. Glass. So I know that there's been some work done in glass in 2020. Maybe you can talk about glass, tinted shadows, roadmap for things like that, and the improvements that were made in 2020.
Yes. So actually, most of those improvements are still on the roadmap for 2022, I think. So tinted glass, I saw a comment if we have the sun coming through, if we can have some tinted shadows. Right now, it's not supported inside Twinmotion, but it's on its plan. It will come in the future. Yeah, what else? Yeah, missing something, but yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. So this is a question: can Twinmotion go to Unreal Engine? And that's also something that we've talked about in the past. It's currently not It's currently not in this release, but it is something that we're working toward and we're looking at. So it's future.
Yeah, exactly. It's really the way we want to position Twinmotion is also like as a quick prototyping tool. You have everything that you need inside Twinmotion to do quick visualization. You have the library, you have the simple tools, but what we want to do is in the future have a bridge between Twinmotion and Unreal, so you can start prototyping inside Twinmotion. You can quickly get some nice results, but at some point you are locked. You can't, for example, like open a door. You can't like trigger an animation when you arrive at some point of the project, for example. The idea is that you will be able to open your Twinmotion file in Unreal, and from there you are able to do whatever you want. So it's something on the roadmap. The dev team is currently working on this bridge.
Okay. So another question that I just saw pop up in the chat, it's interesting, is talking about GI. So maybe you could talk about the screen space GI that was recently introduced and how that works.
Yeah, so in the latest release, we implemented a new screen space global illumination. So first, it's a screen space effect. So for example, let's say you have a light source, just a glowing material inside your scene. If it's not inside the camera, if you don't see it, it won't produce any light. But as soon as this light source come inside your viewport, it will start to produce light around inside your project. Yeah, how?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. So another question, a couple questions about VR came up. So one of them was, does it handle VR? And you answered it in chat, but maybe you can kind of point to people out where the VR is and how you can actually get that maybe with the presenter mode also.
Sure. So when you launch Twinmotion, in the upper right corner of the screen, you have an eye icon, and when you click on that, you have a VR button. But you can also, just with the F10 shortcut, you can switch to VR as long as you have a VR headset plugged in inside your computer. So basically, when you are in Rhino, in just one click, you send your data to Twinmotion through the direct link. And then when you are in Twinmotion, you just press F10 and you switch to VR. So basically, in just 2 clicks, you can switch from Rhino to VR. Also, we on a website we have like the list of supported headset at the moment, so you can have a look at that just to be sure your headset is supported. And also through the presenter. So the presenter is a standalone file that you can export out of Twinmotion that you can send to whoever you want. Through this presenter file, you can also visualize your project in VR. So for example, you are working inside Twinmotion on your project. You export this standalone viewer, this .exe file. You send that to your client. If he has a VR headset, he will be able to navigate inside his project with his VR headset.
So another interesting question was talking about plan views and things like that inside of Twinmotion. So what's the strategy for doing something like that?
I didn't hear the beginning
like
of the question.
A plan view or a first floor view, like a top-down view or something like more of a
yeah, sure. So this option is also on the top right of the screen. When you click on the I button, there is a home icon, which is the different view, like top, front, left, right, bottom. So you can switch from those different views. But in Twinmotion, those views are really meant to be used like as a placing tool. for example, you don't have any shadows. There is a black outline that help define the object between each other. So it's really a placing tool, not that much of a rendering view. So just something to keep in mind when working with that. We also have a clipping tool. So while you are in this top view, you can use the clipping tool. It's also in the upper right corner, in the upper right menu. You can use this clipping tool to cut through the different floors to better position your object inside your scene.
Great. So here's a question about going back to Rhino, and someone's curious about how lights are handled, light fixtures and lights and things like that. So I guess either Scott or Martin could take that one, or both of you could take it.
Yeah. So light source are not translated inside Twinmotion. So basically, one thing that you can do, usually the first thing that you can do is place them manually inside Twinmotion. But what you can also do is using the same workflow as I showed you with the cars. Basically, you can place some basic objects, some basic dummy. It can be just a box or just a sphere, whatever. You can place those objects in Rhino. Then you export just this object, like as a FBX file, whatever, with the keep hierarchy option. You import that inside Twinmotion. It will retrieve the correct position of the object if you stick with the keep hierarchy option. And then you can replace all those basic objects by Twinmotion lights using the same process as I presented during the webinar. So you can just replace all your object by some Twinmotion light. Just keep in mind that if you have like an arena or stadium and you want to replace by thousands of lights, it might be a bit it really depends on your machine, but it can draw quickly the performances. So if you have a smaller project, it can run smooth, but if you have a large project with a lot of light, it might be a bit problematic. So it might be a good idea to focus on just some part of your project as well.
Sure. So one question that always comes up that we didn't address off the top is, yes, this presentation will be recorded. There'll be a link sent out to you. It'll be on YouTube. So as long as you've registered to that registration email, you will be getting a follow-up email from Annie with a link to download the video to watch it again if you would like, or share with colleagues. Another question that kind of came in that was interesting was talking about VR and performance. So they're like, I have an RTX 5000, but even then it's still a little slow and clunky. So VR is a really tricky thing, right? Like this is just real-time engines in general, getting things to VR. You know, you're dealing with something that's trying to play back at 10 milliseconds at 90 frames, 90 FPS, pretty high resolution. So it really comes down to the amount of draw calls that you have in your scene. So the amount of meshes that have to be drawn, as well as, the complexity of it. So for VR, until the hardware gets, faster, you're still going to be needing to be making creative decisions about the amount of information you're throwing at it, and kind of have realistic expectations kind of associated with that super low latency that you need and that super fast frame rate.
And from a Rhino point of view, there's ways to optimize the mesh before you export. So if you use the standard Rhino mesh settings for architectural objects, it isn't the most efficient because Rhino is used for lots of different modeling types. But there is a way to optimize the render mesh in Rhino, and then that will benefit the export to Twinmotion.
It's a pro tip right there. That's a good one, Scott. Thank you. So we're at the top of the hour. Unless there's any questions that were jumping out at you, Scott, that you want to address, or Martin, it's kind of time to wrap this one up. But if there is anything that we didn't cover that you feel is important to get out, now would be a great time.
Last thing I want to say, because I saw the question being asked a couple of times, is the graphic. Twinmotion use mostly the graphic card. So if you want to have a smooth experience, like I have when I'm working inside this project, just get a good graphic card. Twinmotion is perfect running with like a gaming series of graphic card. Here I was running an RTX 2080 Ti. It's really perfect for Twinmotion. So it's just something to keep in mind. Just wanted to finish with that.
And and I was just going to say the questions that everybody still has, and as we work through this, and as we continue to work together on this link, just make sure to get on both the Twinmotion forum and the Rhino forum, and continue to ask your questions, and we'll continue to work through all the different things that people are trying to do. So.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hesitate to send us our feedback. It's really based on the user feedback that we make the software grow. So don't hesitate to share what are your guys' thoughts on that.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending the webinar, and thank you very much to Scott and Martin for putting together this great presentation. We will be doing a repeat of this at 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to catch the second showing, feel free to join us again. And also, this will be sent out. The YouTube link for this presentation will be sent out in a follow-up email in the next day or so. So thank you again, everybody, and enjoy. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.